Imagine getting up every day full of energy as if you were in your 20s again. What would that be like? What would it be worth to you? What is your health worth to you? Think about it. Your health isn't everything, but without it, everything else is nothing. And yet, too many of us are taking it for granted until something goes wrong. And no one wakes up hoping to be diagnosed with a disease or chronic illness. And yet, we've never been taught how to be proactive in our health through our school or public health. As a registered health coach and integrative health practitioner, I believe it's time this information is made available to everyone. Combining new knowledge around your health and the ability to do my functional medicine lab tests in the comfort of your own home will allow you to optimize your health for today and all your tomorrows. Don't wait for your wake-up call. Welcome back to another episode of the Don't Wait for Your Wake-Up Call podcast. I am Melissa Deely, your host. And as I start a new month of podcasts, where many of the guests on the show are talking about burnout and overwhelm, I thought I would do an episode on hormones and how cortisol impacts our hormones. And if you are experiencing symptoms of hormone imbalance, menopausal symptoms, PMS symptoms, struggles with infertility, then perhaps this is something that will give you some answers as to what's going on and a starting place for you to address those imbalances. Because remember, the body always wants to be in balance. And so there's a reason that it's out of balance, and we can do something about that. So let me start out first simply by saying that cortisol imbalances are not the only reason for hormonal imbalances. There are many reasons. I'm going to share the top 10 reasons for hormonal imbalance. And then, as I said, I'm going to dive more deeply into how cortisol is impacting our hormones and the ripple down effect of that. And I will also be sharing my screen today just to show you what this looks like in lab tests that I see every single day. And if you would like to, I will explain it as clearly as I can for the audio listeners. This episode will also be on my Your Guided Health Journey YouTube channel under the Don't Wait for Your Wake Up Call playlist. And you can find the video there so that you can watch along with the slides that I will be showing. So the top 10 root causes of hormonal imbalances are, one factor is environmental and xenoestrogens. So toxins, basically. Xenoestrogens are estrogen that mimics natural estrogen that is coming into our body from external sources. So that can also be from healthy foods, such as soy is very high in estrogen, flax seeds. There's a number of foods that are high in estrogen that are healthy foods, and they mimic the natural estrogens in our body and can drive our estrogen levels up and cause us to be out of balance. And then there's the xenoestrogens, which are the more toxic form of estrogens coming from outside our body, like coming in from plastics and other toxins that just get into our body through our everyday life. Another cause of hormonal imbalance is heavy metal toxicity within our body. And that is something that we can lab test for. And again, I see this often in the world that we live in today. Many people have higher levels of aluminum and mercury in particular in their body. Both of them are neurotoxins. They can also be impacting our hormone balances. And we want to get those out of our body. If we haven't actively done something to bind up those heavy metals and get them out of our body, the body just stores them because they're not natural. It doesn't know what to do with them. It wants to make sure that it's not in our bloodstream. It will store them in our fat closets, which we have fat closets in our brain. It's largely made up of water and fat, our breasts, and anywhere else that we are holding onto excess weight in our body. Thirdly, an imbalanced gut and poor digestion can impact our hormones because our body is all interconnected. One system doesn't work independently of another. There is a great degree of interconnection, and therefore an unhappy gut can trigger hormonal imbalances. And when we start to balance the hormones, the gut heals. When we start to balance or heal the gut, the hormones start to rebalance, because when the body is healing, it also doesn't heal just one part of the body. All of the body starts healing. Another one is an overwhelmed liver and detox pathways, because our liver is designed to detox excess estrogen in the body, because we will end up with excess estrogen. And so we have a natural ability to detox that excess estrogen if our liver is functioning optimally. When it gets bogged down and it can no longer do everything that we ask of it, then some things have to go. And again, it will be like, I don't want this floating around in my bloodstream, just going to hold on to it in the body. I can't do everything. Something's got to give. Next, we have cortisol effects, which I am going to dive into much more deeply shortly. I've also talked about estrogenic inflammatory foods. And then there's also the thyroid estrogen relationship, which I will touch on later, as it's another one of our hormones, obviously, and it's all interconnected with the impact of cortisol on our hormones and then how that impacts our thyroid. Body fat's effect on estrogen. The more body fat we carry, the more estrogen we will produce. And so as we gain weight, we are naturally producing more estrogen, and then that is going to cause a hormonal imbalance. And this is why in overweight men, you will see what looks like man boobs, because they have too much body fat and their body is producing too much estrogen. And we notice it in men who obviously have less estrogen than women. However, they start to have man boobs. There's also the birth control rebound effect. And so when coming off birth control, it takes time for our hormones to be able to rebalance themselves. That can take anywhere from 3 months to a year, depending how long you've been on birth control and just your own body. We're all different. And there is no, this is how long it will be until you can get pregnant once you're off birth control. For some people, it's very quick. And for other people, it can take a lot longer in order to be able to rebalance hormones. And then lastly, menopause's effects on hormones. So as we move into perimenopause and then menopause, the body naturally starts to produce less estrogen, less progesterone, less of all of our hormones. And as it goes through that process, all of these other factors I've mentioned are also impacting the balance within our hormones as we move into menopause. And that's, of course, why so many people have symptoms of insomnia, night sweats, hot flashes, low libido, etc., etc. And there's many, many more symptoms. Those are just some of the top ones. And those are not meant to be just taken as signs. Oh, I'm going through perimenopause, going through menopause. This is just the way it is. I have to suffer through. Those are all symptoms of the way your body is talking to you to let you know that your hormones are out of balance and to please do something about it. And the beautiful thing is that we absolutely can, using natural herbs and supplements, as well as looking at cortisol effects, adjusting lifestyle factors in order to lower our cortisol levels, reduce the stress in our life so that we can bring our hormones back into balance. So this lab test that I'm sharing with you today shows us the sex hormones, all 4 sex hormones. So your estrogen, your progesterone, your estrogen progesterone ratio, your testosterone level, and your DHEA, which is a precursor to testosterone and estrogen. It also shows us your cortisol markers throughout the day. Your morning cortisol, your lunchtime cortisol, your evening cortisol, and your bedtime cortisol level, and then gives a total cortisol for the day reading. In addition to that, it gives all 4 thyroid markers, which is your free T4, your free T3, your TSH, and then your TPO antibodies. The TSH is typically what you can get through your doctor or your PCP. They don't often dive deeper into free T3 and free T4, and I'll explain in a little bit why that's important. This also shows your insulin markers, both fasted and 90-day. And lastly, it shows your vitamin D levels. So I'm just going to dive into explaining all of this and why it's so important. Obviously, we want our hormones to be in balance. And when we are living a healthy life without a lot of stress, and we're nutritionally supported, getting good nutrition throughout the day, we're exercising, we're sleeping well, our hormones will likely be in balance. However, all of these factors can cause our hormones to be out of balance, and all the other ones I mentioned earlier. And because our body has limited resources, it always has to figure out, okay, what do I need the most in this moment? What does this person need? And in our world today, many of us are living in a state of fight or flight or chronic stress. And when we're in that state of chronic stress, our brain thinks we need to get to safety. It thinks we're being chased by a lion or a tiger. And we know we're not. However, the programming in our brain, which is charged with keeping us safe, it doesn't know the difference between the stress that's ramped up inside your body because you've come across a lion or a tiger, or the stress that's ramped up in your body because the alarm didn't go off, you're running late for work, you got to get the kids to school, you have a spat with your spouse on the way out the door, you get in the car and the fuel tank is on empty and you got to go to the gas station before you can even drop the kids at school, and you have a big presentation today. And all of that compounding just makes you stressful. Just saying that makes me feel stressful. And we know that that happens in people's lives on a regular basis, that kind of stacks stresses. And so in that moment, your body, your brain is trying to get you to safety. And it does that by producing cortisol and adrenaline so that you have the energy to be able to fight or flee and get away from that lion and get to safety. And what should happen is when you get to safety, then you get out of that fight or flight state and you get into your parasympathetic rest and digest system. And your body has a chance to calm and your hormones can come back into balance. And in fact, when this happens just every once in a while, your hormones haven't even got out of balance yet. However, when this happens every single day, that you're needing more cortisol, more adrenaline because your brain thinks you need to get to safety, it needs to make that. However, it's like, okay, what am I not going to do in this moment that I'm going to get you to safety? You need energy to get to safety. So I'm going to shut down systems that take energy. I'm going to shut down your immune system. That uses a lot of energy. I'm going to shut down your digestive system. That also uses a lot of energy. And we're not going to be making any babies right now while we're getting to safety. If it's not safe to even bring a baby into the world if you have this much stress and you need to get to safety. So we're going to shut down procreation. So therefore, the body can make more cortisol at the expense of making progesterone. And it's literally called the progesterone steal. And as a result, our progesterone levels start to drop when we are in this state every single day. And we're not getting to safety and getting into our rest and digest parasympathetic nervous system. We just keep living in this chronic state situation, and the body has to keep producing cortisol and adrenaline to get you to safety. And it's not making enough progesterone for that progesterone to stay in balance with the estrogen. And meanwhile, estrogen could be elevated for reasons I talked about before. Xenoestrogens coming into the body, healthy foods that are high in estrogen coming into the body, and your detox pathways being closed up, and therefore the liver not functioning properly and not being able to detox and excrete that excess estrogen. So estrogen can be getting higher, progesterone can be going lower, and we get out of balance with our progesterone estrogen ratio. And that can put us into a state that we call estrogen dominance. And that is not a state that we want to be in, because that estrogen dominant state can then start to cause the thyroid to slow, hello, weight gain, and it can put our thyroid hormones out of balance, and it can start to impact our insulin levels in our metabolic system and put us on a path to type 2 diabetes, even when we're not overweight. And it has been a known cause of breast cancer. And so we simply don't want to be in an estrogen dominant state. We want to do the work that we need to do in order to bring our hormones back into balance. The other thing too is when our progesterone levels are low, it's very hard to hold a pregnancy because we need good levels of progesterone in order to build the lining of the womb in order to hold on to that pregnancy. So if you know someone that's perhaps trying to get pregnant, had a couple of miscarriages, you might want to suggest to them that they run a lab to see what their progesterone levels are, and are they high enough to actually hold on to that pregnancy. Obviously, testosterone is important in both men and women, however, more important in men, and it tends to decline over age. And there's reasons that it's declined, just natural reasons for it declining. High stress can actually make it too high, particularly in women. And there's a lot of men in the world today that are thinking, oh, I need to support my testosterone levels and going on hormone replacement therapy. And that's not a great idea either, because then if you start giving your body, and this is the same for women going on to hormone replacement therapy through their doctors, when you start giving that to your body's like, oh, you're giving it to me. I don't have to make it anymore. And then you become dependent on that for the rest of your life. Whereas when you can use herbal supplements that encourage your body to make more testosterone on its own, that's the path that you want to go down. And you really want to understand what your testosterone levels are before you just decide to do this, which is where these labs are so important. And the same with your estrogen progesterone levels, because the symptoms of high estrogen, low progesterone can be very similar to the other way around. And so we don't want to guess. We want to truly understand where are your numbers at, and based on that, write a wellness protocol that will support rebalancing your hormones naturally. And we always want to take this into account looking at cortisol as well. So on the screen here, I've pulled up the cortisol chart showing morning, noon, evening, night, and total cortisol. Now, on this chart, we can see the optimal range in the middle with the green section, and the white dots are this person's lab test results. So you can see their morning cortisol is low. In the morning, we actually want it to be the highest time of the day. It's like a curve that starts at the highest point in the morning, so we have energy when we wake up, and then it'll slowly drop through the day until bedtime. Because cortisol and melatonin are inverse hormones, we need melatonin to get into a deep restorative sleep. And if our cortisol levels are too high at bedtime, then the body isn't able to make melatonin, and then we're not going to get a restorative sleep. And we sleep poorly, we wake up feeling tired, we resort to caffeine or sugary treats to get our brain started in the morning because we're feeling sluggish. And then we repeat this over and over again. What we need to do is shift your cortisol pattern into that normal pattern, reduce it at night into that low level, and then have it higher in the morning. So focusing on sleep is really, really important for rebalancing cortisol. So as I said, this person with low morning cortisol likely feels sluggish in the morning. And then at noon, their cortisol is really high and out of range. There's also reasons for this. So if I was talking to this client, I would be asking them, did you do a workout before lunch, mid-morning, and you've just done a big workout and then you did this lab test, and that's why the cortisol has suddenly gone high at that time of day. So we always want to check in. Is there anything that could trigger this, or is this just how you go through your day and you're slow to start, and then by lunchtime your cortisol levels are high? In the evening, they have dropped. They're still elevated compared to where we want to see them. And then at nighttime, they're out of range high again. So this person's body is not making melatonin at bedtime because their cortisol levels are still so high. And she did say she doesn't sleep well, and that's not a surprise when I see a lab like this. And so we focus on helping to calm her adrenals at nighttime, starting with some adaptogenic herbs taken at lunch and dinner in her case, because she was also high at lunchtime, that because they're adaptogenic, what they do is they're adapting to the cortisol level in the body. And when the cortisol level is high, they're helping to calm that. And it just helps to naturally calm their nervous system so that by the time they get to bedtime, their cortisol levels have come down, their body can naturally produce melatonin, and they can have a deeper, more restorative sleep. There's also many lifestyle factors that we want to be looking at here as well, not just relying on an adaptogenic herb or supplement like magnesium, which is also great at calming the nervous system and helping with sleep, and I do highly recommend it. However, there's always more. So what else can you be doing? Well, if you are someone who's on screens at night, television, your iPad, your phone, etc., your computer, and you don't have blue light blocking glasses on, or you don't have night shift already set up to turn that blue light into a yellow light, all of that blue light coming into your eyes in the evening is telling your brain that it's high noon, because that's the light that we get from the sun in the middle of the day. So your brain doesn't even know that it's time to start getting ready for bed and time to start producing melatonin, because it's getting all this blue light in. That's where blue light blocking glasses are important and helpful, so that your brain starts to get an indication that it's getting to be evening time and I need to start producing melatonin so that we can have a restorative sleep. This is you and your brain working together, right? And just also to be aware that for every hour you are on screens after dark without any blue light blocking glasses or night shift, etc., your body is blocked from making melatonin for another half hour after you get off the device. So if you're on your screens for 3 hours after dark, that's an hour and a half after you get off that your body cannot even produce melatonin. And so just be aware of that as well. This is how important blue light blocking glasses are. I've got some on my website under the resources tab, Viva Rays, that you can check out. Really good quality ones with different lenses for different times of day that you can use to block the blue light. And for me, it makes such a difference. If I watch television at night, I don't often do that. However, when my husband and I watch together and I wear my blue light blocking glasses, I can go to bed and fall asleep easily. And every once in a while, I will forget to put them on. And I lie awake, regretting it, going, oh my goodness, how did I forget to put my blue light blocking glasses on? And I take that as just that reminder of how important it is for me to be wearing my blue light blocking glasses, because it allows me to get good sleep. Having a good bedtime routine is also really important. 30 to 45 minutes before you actually turn out the light, having a regular routine that helps calm your nervous system. Maybe it's a shower, getting in your pajamas, doing some breath work, doing some stretching, doing some reading of a book. If it's a device, make sure night shift is on or you're wearing your blue light blocking glasses. Journaling, writing, doing your gratitude journaling. All of these things help to calm your system, calm your mind, and help you get into that place where your body can get into a deep restorative sleep. We can't control all of the stresses in our life, obviously. And we have many different types of stresses. We've got, relationship stresses, family stresses, work stresses, etc., etc. And those are all external stresses. Then we also have stresses inside our body that we may or may not even be aware of. If we're sick and fighting something, that's a stress on the immune system. Maybe there's an imbalance in your gut, that's a stress on your body. Maybe you've got an injury, that's another stress on the body. So all of these stresses add up. You can't mitigate all of the stress in your life. However, you can focus on addressing your sleep, calming your nervous system, taking these steps to get you sleeping more. And that in and of itself starts to rebalance your cortisol levels and has you waking up with good energy, with your cortisol level in the optimal range, and move you into a more natural diurnal rhythm. So this person, their total cortisol for the day is elevated. So you can see that their adrenals are working really hard. And again, we want to calm all of that and bring them back into the optimal range. And when we calm all of that, that will also start to help just bring her estrogen into a lower level. It'll also support progesterone production because the cortisol steal isn't happening as much, because her cortisol level or her progesterone level is so low and out of range. I would also recommend supporting it with some herbs to help her body produce more progesterone for about 6 months. And hopefully after 6 months, she's made enough lifestyle changes with her sleep and being able to calm her body during the day with some breath work, with walks, or at any time during the day when it's just, the stress levels are rising up, just go take a 5-minute walk. Go outside, breathe, take a 5-minute walk. And if you're near nature, get into nature, because that is incredibly calming on the nervous system. So that's how cortisol is impacting our sex hormones. And then remember earlier, I said that when we're in an estrogen dominant state, that starts to impact the health of our thyroid. It starts to slow the thyroid, and cortisol also impacts the health of our thyroid. So as I said, our doctors will test for our TSH level. And if that's looking normal, this one is slightly elevated at a 2.9. We really want to see it at 2.5 or below. If that looks normal, then we're told, yep, you're good, your thyroid's good. However, what I will often see is that TSH is normal. However, free T4 might be elevated, or free T3 could be elevated, or just either of them out of range. They could be low. And knowing that information is really helpful because those are really early warning signs that TSH is going to start to get out of balance soon. And we can intervene again with natural herbs and supplements in order to help the body be able to produce enough thyroid hormone without TSH having to work harder. So what happens is free TSH is produced in the body, thyroid stimulating hormone, and that produces free T4, which then converts to free T3, which is the usable thyroid hormone. However, when we have a lot of cortisol running through our body, it will block that production. And so then we aren't producing enough free T3, which tells our brain to produce more TSH. And that's how we can end up with elevated TSH. And it's happening because cortisol is blocking the conversion of free T4 to free T3. And so supporting with one of the thyroid medications is often the answer. However, it's not getting to the root. It's not addressing the fact that the cortisol levels are so high that they're actually triggering this, and that our estrogen progesterone ratio is causing problems and slowing our thyroid. And when we understand all of that, we can address what's going on with our cortisol and take a look at that pattern throughout the day in order to then make a few lifestyle changes that are easy to make over time, nothing drastic, and it's completely worth it because you don't want to have thyroid issues down the path. You don't want to be gaining weight. You don't want to have insulin issues and be diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, etc., etc. So a few minor changes now can rebalance everything for you. And it's like a seesaw. If you're at the very end of the seesaw, it takes a long way to get, it's hard work to get to the other end. But if you're just in the middle, just off center of that seesaw, it's really easy to get back to center and get back into balance. So the earlier we discover the imbalances, the better. And the first signs of your body talking to you is your body suggesting, hey, I'm out of balance. Figure out what it is and bring me back into balance, please. That's literally what symptoms are asking you to do. So moving down this lab test, we also look at insulin, which is our fasted insulin level. And ideally, we want to be on this lab between a 2 and a 6.1. This person's slightly elevated. And then we also look at hemoglobin A1C, which is giving us a 90-day look at your marker so that we can see, okay, are you where we want to see you? And ideally, we want to see you below a 5.6%. And if that level is optimal, then I'm not so worried about seeing a slightly elevated insulin level. If I see the hemoglobin A1C elevated, then we definitely want to be looking at how can we adjust your diet and your lifestyle in order to reverse these early warning signs of type 2 diabetes. And then the very last reading on this lab is your vitamin D level. And this person is low. And interestingly, this person lives in the sun belt. So they don't supplement because, they live in the sun. However, even when we live in the sun, are we exposing enough of our bare naked skin to natural sunlight for enough hours of the day for our body to get the vitamin D that it needs? Back in the day of hunter-gatherers, they were obviously out in the sun a lot more than we are today, living in our homes and in our offices and sitting and staring at computer screens all day long. And our vitamin D levels drop. And vitamin D is important for so many things. It supports our respiratory health. It's excellent for bone health, teeth health, brain health, and it's also really good at helping to balance our hormones. And so that's why it's also on this lab. If vitamin D levels are low, it's very hard to rebalance. When we bring our vitamin D levels up to optimal range, then it is much easier to rebalance. And I also neglected to mention how important vitamin D is for the immune system as well. So I highly recommend people supplement. I supplement my vitamin D. And in fact, 100% of Canadians and people in the northern part states of the US are deficient if they aren't supplementing, simply because we don't have enough hours of the day, days of the year that we can expose our skin to natural sunlight. And then, as I said earlier, even people in the sun belt can be deficient because we're not spending enough time outside. So I hope that information is really helpful to you. I find it incredibly helpful in working with my clients to have these lab markers and be able to show them that, first off, you are not crazy. The symptoms you are experiencing are absolutely legitimate, and here's what we can do about it. And the beautiful thing too is that with the human body, when we create the environment for it to heal, it will start healing very quickly, and you will start feeling better very soon. So if you are experiencing symptoms of anything and you're struggling to get to the bottom of them, please reach out, Melissa at yourguidedhealthjourney.com, and let's have a conversation about what's going on with you, what kind of labs might be able to show you the root cause of that, so that we can then write a wellness protocol and help you bring back your body into balance, because that's all the body wants. A body in balance doesn't gain weight, doesn't get sick, and certainly doesn't struggle with dis-ease. And because a body in balance can actually heal itself, and that's what it's designed to do. The problem is, in today's world, with all the stress that we live under, we become nutrient deficient because stress has us burning through our minerals and our vitamins. And if we're not getting enough back into our body, we become deficient, and the body simply doesn't have enough resources to do all that we expect of it. And so we get out of balance, and the body can't bring itself back into balance. We have to intervene and improve the nutrition, make sure that you're getting all the vitamins and minerals that you need to the level that you need in order to be able to thrive. And that is really key. And I've talked before on this show how the three major causes of chronic disease are a high toxic load, which is just unfortunately the reality we live in. And I don't stress about the toxicities. I do everything that I can to live a clean life, changing out all my personal care products, my cleaning products, food, etc. And I know I'm still getting toxins in, and I don't stress about that. Instead, I choose to do my regular detoxes, and once a year, a heavy metal detox, so that I can get those toxins out. And so it's on top of the toxic load that can trigger chronic illness. That's one of the causes. The next is nutrient deficiency. And so, as I said, that happens under stress when we are not getting enough vitamins and minerals. We're burning through them. We're not replacing them. And it is harder today to get the nutrient quality than it was 100 years ago because of our depleted soil systems, and also because of our fast food industry. People living a processed food diet are only getting 17 of 99 nutrients needed for us to thrive every single day. And the third is stress. So the combination of a high toxic load, low nutrient uptake, and stress, those are the three major factors of chronic disease. So if you can manage those three for yourself, then you are far less likely to have any kind of diagnosis of chronic disease. And if you've already had a diagnosis, then addressing those three will start to reverse that for you, because chronic illness does not have to be a life sentence. It can be reversed. It can't be reversed like that. There is no magic pill. However, over time, making these lifestyle changes, your body is very forgiving. And when you create the environment for it to heal, it will heal. So thank you very, very much for tuning in and listening to this episode. I hope that it was enlightening and you learned a lot. And if you know someone else that needs to hear this, please share this episode with them, and enjoy the rest of the episodes this month as my guests tune in and share with you various aspects of working with and preventing yourself from getting into a place of burnout and overwhelm. I want to share with you today an exciting new program that we are offering in fall of 2024. It is a 60-day program giving you 4 designations in that time frame. And over the course of the 2 months, we're not working together every single day. However, each training that we teach builds on the next. And so the first week, there's a short training, some homework, a check-in as a group before we go into the next training. And throughout this entire program, you are going to be learning about your unconscious mind, learning self-hypnosis, higher self-hypnosis, getting a designation as a hypnotherapist in the Krasner method. You will also be designing your destiny, and you will be participating in an 8-day mind-body practitioner training that gives you designations in the practitioner level of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, timeline therapy, another hypnotherapy training, and this time in the Ericksonian method, and then as an NLP results coach. So these are powerful certifications or designations that are recognized in over 40 countries around the world that allow you to be getting out and working with your clients and helping them get the real transformation they're looking for the easy way, using the tools of the unconscious mind, releasing their trauma without even having to talk about it. So if this is something you'd like to know more about, check out the link in the show notes. Click on the link and book a call with either Billy, my training partner, or myself, and we would be happy to have a conversation with you about where you can go in your career with these designations in just 60 days.